This story will cover from then to now and next, all about change, how to turn losers into winners. They used to say, if you can't save the whale, you can't save anything. Yes, many countries love their cetaceans, as the whales and dolphins are called. We'll look at change over the years. The locals in Dingle on the west coast of Ireland enjoy a banana sitting on fungi, a wild dolphin celebrity since 1983 who has brought money and fame to this little harbour town. It's a kind of dolphin mania. Some 250,000 people have enjoyed fungi's company. It seems fungi really likes fun. But do these captive dolphins, in a show, enjoy their lives effectively in prison for our entertainment? We'll look at our relationship with cetaceans around the world, both captive and wild. At sea, we'll look at the mighty toothed whale, the sperm whale, and see how a major whale watching industry has developed around an animal of which tourists only see a tiny part of it. Yes, you wouldn't accept that for an elephant, would you? The tail is the most you get for your money. Or you could spend it in eating in the same town in Norway, a very civilized country with a long history of exploiting the resources of the sea. So, a subject of winning and losing, if you're a dolphin or a whale. Let's see, across time, if whales could be winning. To get a taste of public opinion, protest and whaling politics, we joined the 63rd annual meeting of about 450 delegates to the International Whaling Commission, held this year, 2011, in Jersey in England's Channel Islands. Potentially this is an occasion of conflict, not at sea over whaling, but in the mostly calm of diplomacy. This is a warship, sort of. It's called the Brigitte Bardot, famous for her love of animals and much else. It's here to try and make a difference between whales winning or losing, hopefully changing attitudes in the younger generation. The Sea Shepherd attracts volunteers from all over the world.
I think I truly have the hope that there are so many other compassionate people out there in this world, but the problem is if you're sitting at home and if you're watching something on TV or program and you see something inhumane, something illegal, something that's destructing our wildlife or our environment, get up and do something about it. And I guess this is why I got up and thought, if I don't do something, no one will. So I got up, decided to volunteer.
There is blood in Antarctica's pristine seas. The Sea Shepherds are soldiers in this war. Their leader is Captain Paul Watson. Their fight is against a group of Japanese fishermen who are catching whales. The Sea Shepherds say the whalers are violating an international ban on commercial whaling. The whalers say they're legally killing whales for scientific research. Both claim to have the law on their side. These are their battles. This is their war.
Tell me, what do you think is going to happen here this time at Jersey?
You know, the International Whaling Commission, nothing ever seems to really happen at these meetings. They come together. I mean, the only exciting thing that's happening this year is the United Kingdom is putting forth a proposal to look into the corruption within the International Whaling Commission, specifically with Japan buying votes. And we'll see what happens with that. Other than this, Japan's here to try and see what they can do to further their whaling ambitions. So those are the things that we're actually looking at. But our main concern with being here is to see what Japan's intentions are for the Southern Ocean. If they go back, then we'll go back.
Do you think they will go back?
It doesn't make any economic or political sense for them to go back at all, but they're talking about going back, so I think they're just being extremely stubborn. It's not even a question of being pro-whaling or anti-whaling now. With the Japanese, it's sort of their anti-whaling seems to be their position, and it seems that they're quite willing to lose the money to not lose face on this.
The local news expected some friction. They certainly saw protest.
Non-governmental organisations and charitable groups were represented. One of the countries here is Japan.
Still real issues, how it's going to play out, difficult to say really.
So don't expect this conference to make any drastic changes to whaling. It'll certainly make, though, a lot of noise. Edward Salt, BBC Channel Islands News, Jersey.
Inside it's a lot quieter. Mongolia's here, about as far as you can get from the sea. But whales are world property, and delegates linking up for all sorts of reasons. This island of Dominica in the Caribbean has big whales, as we'll see. It also has apparently potential for more fishing, so Japan is helping. Some say the fish will go back to Japan, and they may even switch to whaling when this new complex is finished. But of course, all these marine resources are linked to a massive food web. From tiny plankton to the great whales like the sperm whales, and that impressive big dolphin, the killer whale or orca. As Paul Watson of Sea Shepherd, visiting the International Whaling Commission back in Jersey, UK, always says, if the oceans die, we die. International tourism is vital income for Dominica. These giants dive deep for squid and fish, surfacing only for a few minutes to blow and breathe. Despite their 60 feet length, that's 20 metres, and their massive size, in that short time, a tourist has to make the most of the moment. Such is the appeal of the whale.
That's definite clicking. There's no two ways about that. That stuff is close to us. That's within, I would say within 8 kilometers.
But to a Japanese, that could represent a lot of food and oil, in a tradition that many other countries shared in the past. Thousands of miles to the north, in northern Norway, you can also watch sperm whales. Or eat one, or part of one. According to the menu in Norway, Paul Watson at the International Whaling Commission in 2011 is not a popular name around here.
But you put a lot of effort and money into this. It's fantastic. Now, would you say over the years you're winning or losing? I think you're probably bound to say you're winning because you ought to. But I mean, do you think that's the case?
We've been fighting whaling since 1974, and there's definitely been a reduction in the number of whales killed every year. We can actually measure our success in the Southern Ocean by the number of whales they don't kill. So last year was 528 whales that we saved. This year is 835. So every year we do better than the year before. In fact, every year we've been going down stronger, and they've been going down weaker. So this last year was the first year we went down to the Southern Ocean actually in a stronger position than the entire Japanese whaling fleet, and we were able to force them out of the sanctuary a month and a half early when they only took about 15% of their quota.
When whaling started centuries ago, there were lots of whales in every ocean on the planet. Not an easy target though, and the crews lived a very hard and dangerous life, using small boats and hand harpoons, and then being dragged at speed by the terrified and injured creature. Then came faster steamboats instead of sail, plus more powerful harpoons with exploding grenades and factory ships. The exploding harpoon was invented by Sven de Foyn in the same town in Norway where you can both watch whales and eat them. To a country dependent on the sea, this seems to some to be a sensible kind of harvest for producer and customer, but the income from whale watching is now some $1 billion a year. Globally, some 10 million people in 90 countries do it. In the early 1900s, several nations, especially Norway and Great Britain, went killing in the Antarctic and achieved in 60 years a massive total of 2 million whales, including 360,000 blue whales, the largest animal that has ever lived. Now populations are very slowly recovering. Though the Japanese have been killing smaller whales, the little minke whale, in the sanctuary supposedly for scientific research. That may or may not continue, and the IWC will need to know what's happening next. Here at Grytviken, on South Georgia in the Antarctic, there remains a ghost town, including a pretty Norwegian church overlooking a place of massive death and destruction. Then the prize was enormous and the work horrendous. These days tourists come in comfort, and the living whales in pristine panoramas, the home of that international superstar, the killer whale or orca. Unfortunately for them, they've been exploited as so-called superstars in a very different location, as we'll see. Near Seattle, on the west coast of the United States, an epic study has been carried out on these highly intelligent and free-roaming large dolphins. Each animal is known and tracked, and Ken Bolcom knows what he's talking about.
So half the population is not going to be here in 20 years.
Yeah, get the incinerator going.
And they have been analyzed. 6 of them have been analyzed in Canada. They contain PCB, polychlorinated biphenyl, levels that are among the highest in the world recorded, up to 235 parts per million. For comparison, humans have about 1 part per million, and at 3 we're toxic and experiencing reproductive problems. Mothers who nurse their babies, the babies have neurological problems, ADD, developmental problems.
Putting killer whales in captivity to do tricks to earn money for a large corporation was seen by some to be wrong. It has led to major problems for that corporation, as we'll see. These shows continue around the world in extravagant tourist locations like Florida and Dubai. She may be having a great time at Atlantis, all smiles. The dolphin may look as if it's smiling too, but some of these prisoners in the pool may have been snatched from their mothers, as seen in the revealing award-winning film The Cove, made in Japan. So up to now, to answer the question, are whales winning? It's about wild and captive, watching and killing, with public opinion and media coverage becoming crucial. More and more amazing footage showing humpback whales bubble netting their prey. Then approaching the whale watchers, as if they've forgotten what previous innocent and at the time generations did to them. In the Mediterranean, no less, the world's second largest whale, the fin whale, was heavily exploited worldwide, but is now steadily increasing, despite attempts by Iceland to carry on killing. But problems remain as our pressure on the oceans grows. Now, increasing hunt for fish wins snare whales by mistake, and they can be a whale of a tangle. Compared with the old days, this northern right whale, one of the rarest, has suffered more and more from ships, hit by bows, slashed by propellers. Regulation is now being attempted, and this and other species may benefit from research now and into the future. Now protected right whales, called right because they were the right whale to kill because they floated, when they arrive from Florida up the east coast of the US to Canada, they may be harpooned. This is a breeding group with a female getting big attention. This was back in 1995. The population has now slowly risen to about 450, and satellite tracking is a great new tool. You don't have to kill a whole whale for that these days, but tell that to the Japanese.
It's said if a whale could scream, whaling would have stopped long ago.
Via a loophole in the IWC rules, killing whales could be carried out for scientific research. It was then sold on, and very little useful science has apparently ever emerged over the years. And many small minke whales have been killed, some in the Antarctic whale sanctuary. Yet more talk, yet little action at sea.
Come on, 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 come on.
So they leave the building to all the 88 nations that gather every year to try and decide the fate of animals, many of them they have never seen. Jersey seems a million miles from the Antarctic or the tropical shores of Dominica. But these meetings are where the fate of these majestic and intelligent creatures is decided, eventually. One day, maybe, all whales and dolphins will jump with joy, and the only orcas will be wild and free.
But for now, it could go either way. both killing cetaceans in the wild or keeping them in captivity. Here at Brighton, England, the public queue for Whale Fest, the biggest event of its kind in the world. It's a party for young and old, keen to know more about whales and dolphins and their future. There's something for everyone, from plastic litter in the ocean to travel, filmmaking, including sharks, whose image is being changed at last. So will the next generation grow up to see real orcas only in the wild, as a result of public pressure and the media? Here's Elvis again, well, sort of. Impersonators joined Japanese politicians and the US past President George W. Bush in a publicity stunt. Bizarre maybe, but for the whales, things have moved in the right direction since.
By the International Court of Justice has ruled Japan's whaling in the Southern Ocean illegal and required Japan to end its whaling program, which it did. Unfortunately, it has now invented a new whaling program, and this gentleman, Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, has declared their intention to again sail the fleet down to the waters of the Southern Ocean Sanctuary and kill whales starting again this autumn. So there's much to celebrate and good conservation progress. Hard-won efforts have paid off. We're celebrating here this year at Whale Fest, the first year in more than a century that no whales have been killed in the Southern Ocean for commercial purposes. But even now, Shinzo Abe's government are sharpening their harpoons, preparing to launch this autumn to renew their whaling around Antarctica. One of the actions that you can take, you can find whales in the 21st century. With respect to whaling in the Southern Hemisphere, we've never been closer. We have a generational opportunity to affect developments between now and autumn when Japan proposes to go back. Please do it. That's all I have.
In March, Japan's scientific whaling was found illegal. And at first, Japan seemed shocked by the verdict. It agreed to abide by the ruling, and then it started to become clear what this was going to mean in practice. Japan was going to pause its whaling for 1 year. We're now in that, or we're just coming towards the end of that whaling season. Our winter, the austral summer, Japan is not present in Antarctica. Maybe that is one victory.
The notoriety achieved by the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. Many of you may have seen.
Now, are whales winning?
I think very slowly the whales are winning. Step by step we're winning the war. But they're toxic. I think more and more people are understanding that they don't need to be killing whales anymore. So overall, in the Faroes and in Japan, I think we're winning the war slowly.
Now to captivity. John Hargrove worked at SeaWorld in the US, a huge corporation, apparently now on the slippery slope of public opinion. Controversial, yes, but a film called Blackfish hit SeaWorld hard, being, it was reported, one of the 4 worst companies in America. The Blackfish effect, as it's now known, continues to hurt SeaWorld with the massive exposure of the film.
It was BAFTA nominated, Satellite Award winner for Best Motion Picture Documentary. Media, obviously she needed to do it to promote her film, but she did it because she was passionate about it, like all of you are today, and she did it from the right place. And now with global distribution, conservative estimates now put Blackfish viewership at more than 150 million people worldwide, which is
SeaWorld is the most notorious of its global kind because of the trainers' deaths, attributed to lonely, confined, frustrated, desperate, even drugged creatures that, in the wild, roam far and wide in close-knit family groups. There has been an Empty the Tanks campaign, but some countries like China are filling them with wild-caught whales and dolphins, as tourism pays. British Airways has not been helping by continuing to sell SeaWorld packages. That's despite a petition of some 300,000 signatures back in 2014. The blackfish effect continues, and SeaWorld is a loser.
World's profits have plummeted. 2 million people less visited their parks than they did last year. I just really think that the tides are changing. People are really becoming involved, really learning different things about dolphinarium and why these animals should be in captivity. I think it's really become an individual quest that people are finally turning, and I think it's great to see. I mean, it's been a long, Naomi Rose of the Animal Welfare Institute has been doing this for a long time, and she said it's a patience thing. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, but tides are changing.
4,000 crosses. A clever piece of publicity outside Whalefest on the beach at Brighton. Crosses in the shape of an orca remind the public of these ongoing controversial cetaceans on land in pools or hunted on the high seas. While delegates argue with the International Whaling Commission.
Every year that the moratorium remains in place, as far as I'm concerned, is a success. And it's been in place since 1986. It was agreed here in Brighton 32 years ago.
So 3 countries are left trying to continue commercial whaling.
Of course, significant and of concern. So where are we now?
It seems to be a gamble every year, winning or losing. Will the numbers killed fall or rise? And let's not forget, dolphin and whale meat contains poisons picked up in the sea. Meanwhile, back in the pool, is the sun rising or setting for these amazing creatures? SeaWorld has been suffering badly, though not as much as its prisoners. It seems to be a loser, with a lot of bad press. More recently, public concern surfaced further with the death of sperm whales on an English beach. Plastics in their stomachs can kill. Japan continued whaling the latest over 300 minke whales, including more than 200 pregnant females. But Iceland looks like it will stop hunting the mighty fin whales, and in the end, Japan, losing face, will stop.